Very welcome, everyone. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, X, the new name. The topic today is natural gas powering data centers. And with us, with pleasure, we have Cyrus Brooks. I will not read this bio because Cyrus is a very strong guy in the industry with an international experience. Very, very good to talk to us. And it's a pleasure to have Cyrus here. And
Thank you.
yeah, Robert Kashmar is a specialist in natural gas and in the company Arbeck is very, very famous in the world talking about natural gas. And this one is me, only to make the registration here that I'm the moderator. Uh, People, it's a pleasure to have you today in this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us here. Yeah.
Happy to be here, Armando.
Perfect. They sent to us several pictures to be shared, and please ask me to share when you want, okay?
Yep.
I will make questions for both, and you choose who will start talking. And so the first point for me in this topic is the real cause that electricity is growing, the world consumption, the demand of world electricity. What are the main points that may drive this growing? More people accessing electricity, poor people, electric cars, data centers for IE. What exactly is going?
Yeah, well, you certainly hit on some recent topics. I think the AI and the data centers is important, and I think also it's important to kind of get it in perspective as well about what is powering what. But like you said, you got AI and data centers are very unexpectedly huge growth because of, say, about 3 years ago, we basically had breakthroughs, starting with ChatGPT and obviously other. Artificial intelligence really has been going since the 1950s, believe it or not. And even the automatic fill in the blank that was happening in our Google searches is artificial intelligence. All of these suggestions on Amazon and Netflix, this is all artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence has become exponential. And this is why we're seeing such a huge interest in power demand due to data centers. But obviously, there's other things as well. As we know, we had the Inflation Reduction Act in the last administration, which really brought a lot of attention to electrification, renewables, all these kind of things. So you certainly have electrification and more people taking up things like whether it is electric cars or whether it is and charging them, obviously, or just even things like induction stoves or all sorts of things like this. There is a lot of electrification happening. But I do think also we have to consider in the worldview, we have to look at the growing power demand overall, because we have countries in South America and Southeast Asia, and even looking at China. Just the economic development of China, India, and so many countries, Vietnam, and countries throughout South America. All the economic development has also increased world power consumption. And that is so it's not just increased uses for electricity, but increased electricity demand overall. And I think that's where we can go to the first graph, which is
yeah, sure.
Yeah. So if you look at this electricity, now I didn't bring it, by the way, but electricity demand in 2024 was 20%. So this is actually only 20% of all energy demand in the whole world. However, if you look at what is fueling all the electricity needs that we just spoke about a moment ago, of course, we're looking still majorly coal, natural gas, oil, nuclear, hydropower are obviously the biggest things. But you could see these new kids on the block, so to speak. I mean, they have been around a while, but for sure, there's no denying that renewables such as wind and solar, they have started to play a significant part in the energy mix. And if you go to the next slide.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit closer to home. So if you look at the United States and you look at electricity generation, you see an interesting difference, which is coal use has basically kind of plateaued in the late 2000s and then declined, and now you see the majority of of power in the United States is actually by natural gas. So what we have is this is the same in other countries where we have a preference for natural gas because it's cleaner for electricity generation. And we're going to start to see more of that in the developing world, even though you saw in the previous graph, there's a lot.
Yeah, but Cyrus, one of the reasons is that natural gas reserves in the United States is very big, and the prices are small, little. So
you are very right. And I can't blame it. I'm like, no one's going to criticize South Africa, India, China, Indonesia, Vietnam, like for using domestic sources where they have them. And India, South Africa, China, they all have huge coal domestic resources. So of course they're going to use those because that is what they need for economic development. And but what this does show is it does show that natural gas is kind of a preferred fuel source for more environmental needs and for more air quality and other things like that. So in the case of China, of course, they just don't have enough energy. So they're going to use many sources anyway. Yeah.
Perfect. Let me show Dr. Paula Kerber. Good afternoon. Welcome, Paula Kerber. But let me understand why United States is so different from other parts of the world, because it's only because the reserves or prices. What else?
Well, it's also the infrastructure in place, Armando. You know, for the longest time, the United States had natural gas infrastructure in place for heating, but now we have natural gas in place for power sources, electric gen. You know, we're able to utilize those assets that are already in the ground for a different use.
You mean pipelines and LNG ships for export?
LNG, underground pipelines are the assets in place that have been there for decades in the United States that we're able to, I won't say repurpose, but use them for electric generation as well as heating and cooling.
Yeah, and Robert and Cyrus, and to cover the intermittence of renewables, natural gas is the best one?
Yes, absolutely. It is dispatchable, right? It's very flexible. So, you know, I think Cyrus has a graph that kind of talks a little bit about the intermittency of renewables.
If you go to the next graph, next one or next one, let's see what the next ones are.
Sure. 1 second. Let me put here. Oh my God.
So I believe Cyrus pulled these from ERCOT, right? Or it
might be well, the first one was just to the U.S. is, you can see, is 43% powered by natural gas. So there's been a big increase there we saw in the previous graph, but this just gives you the overall figures as of 2023. But if you look at the next graph after that, just wanted to give you, these are actually today and yesterday. So yesterday is the entire day. And if you look at the blue line around the beginning of the day, it's the second to the top, that's wind. And you can see that wind is, it can be quite significant, but it also can drop suddenly. So you can see between, it was somewhere around between 9 a.m. and 12 noon, it dropped from around 15 or so down to about 8. And so that's like 7 gigawatts of power that are just gone. And so that's pretty significant. And it's not something that you don't plan for something like that. You have to adjust it immediately. Now, if you look at the way natural gas changed, you could see right at that moment, it was natural gas, because natural gas is actually more like a knob. You could say even more than a switch, although it can be switched on, but it also can be a knob. It can ramp up slowly or quickly, as you can see right here. And then to just show you the intermittency, well, the next day, you had a lot lower wind, and then you could see immediately you see natural gas is a huge amount the next day.
Very good chart. Yeah.
So, and this is just ERCOT. So this is the Texas grid, but it's a good example of what can happen really on any grid.
Yeah, of course. It's very similar to other places because it's a nature that is speaking. Interesting. Very interesting.
Exactly. It has a lot of solar, as you can see, which is the one in the middle of the day, and it has a lot of wind. But that's the challenge that they're running into. Yeah.
Perfect. I know that Robert wrote an article focused on the Virginia region about electricity demands, specifically for data centers, I suppose. Could you please, Robert, tell us a little bit more about this? Because Virginia is the most important part of the world in terms of data centers in the future. Is it correct?
Yeah, Armando. It's a really interesting article. We got a lot of takeaways from it. It is available on LinkedIn as well as the RBAC website. And, like you kind of segued into, Virginia is the highest concentration of data centers in the US and the world. So that's why we kind of focused in on it, for some scenario analysis to dictate, hey, what would different levels of incremental demand have on supply, on pricing, on natural gas flows in and out of the region.
You mentioned that natural gas is covering the intermittence of solar and wind, but at the same time, what energy is covering natural gas? If you have some problems with natural gas.
Well, natural gas is very much a baseload fuel, and it is able to ramp up and ramp down for power usage quite easily. So it's going to be the fuel source of choice for these data centers. It's my understanding that these data centers, if they experience an outage, that they'll have to restart their computer processes from the beginning. So they want to eliminate all possible data outages. So they're going to very much rely on natural gas.
Cyrus and Robert, so do you expect that natural gas can be for a long time? What's the perspective for natural gas reserves and let's see, to offer this demand and consumption efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. Within North America, there is a robust resource base. We have the natural gas resources to fuel this demand, resulting from AI and data centers.
Marcellus, I mean, if you had add, as you pointed out, like the major sources are going to be Marcellus, right? And Utica up right around the corner from Virginia. But overall, if we look at the broader sources, I mean, you're right. The U.S., you're alluding to it earlier, Armando. U.S. is blessed with so much shale gas, and interestingly, if you just a tangent for a moment, I mean, if you remember, I mean, the OPEC tried to bankrupt the early shale producers by basically putting out so much that they would just not be able to produce. And it actually backfired because it caused them to innovate so heavily that their price, basically the dollar price to produce was much lower than.
Well, they also lost market share, as a result of them trying to wage this price war, Cyrus. And it's
Right.
not just the U.S. that has a robust resource base. It's Canada, with the oil sands. There's a lot of resources up there, and then there's even regions of Mexico that have natural gas reserves. The Eagle Ford shale play extends into Mexico. So it's not just the U.S. who's blessed with its resources.
That's a very good point, because how do you compare with China data centers? Do they have data centers like the U.S. has? And
yes, they definitely do.
Europe, I know that's very difficult to say about these numbers, but the dimensions, general dimensions, what do they have? And Europe?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, what they have, or even if I trust those reported numbers.
Yeah, or even if you wanted to use a data center sitting in China, you might be a little bit worried if your data is going through the data center.
Yeah. And countries in Europe, like Germany and France, do they have, or they are not aware about this?
They are building data centers over there, Armando, but not to the extent as the United States. And, part of that, is the resource base in the United States and just the lower cost of energy.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think some of our listeners can even chime in. Like some of these guys are actually from London and different areas. They could probably chime in a lot about the global data center scene. But I think it's very analogous. Like the U.S., certainly we do have a different market. We do have a different situation with our transmission lines, both electric and both our pipeline system, and obviously our approval system, where we're going with the energy transition, where Europe wants to go, or where the European Parliament has said that they want to go with the energy transition, and whether that's real or not, that's a whole nother episode. But I think it's still very analogous, because the data centers are an interesting animal, you could say, right? Because they're 24/7. So you could basically power them on natural gas or coal or whatever you have. But natural gas in the U.S. is actually the fastest. It's aside from, you could set up renewables pretty fast, but they don't have power lines, so they're kind of screwed in that way. So because they have to be set up where the wind is, where the sunshine is, which is not necessarily in Virginia.
But that's a good point. Before we go to the interesting question that the audience is sending to us, let me make a conclusion with you both. So the growth of data center in the United States is based on the cheap price of energy. Is it correct?
It sure helps, Armando.
Helps. Yeah. Not only this, of course, yes. The strategies and investments and capacity.
You could actually answer that question just by the fact that all the companies in data centers, the hyperscalers, Meta, Google, Amazon, they're all getting involved in energy. That already tells you that without even much research, that the power is so much that they know energy is going to be, a huge input into their cost.
Including Microsoft in the nuclear area. They are investing in these things. Yeah. Let me put a question from Dr. Paula Kerber, who studies renewable energy. I do not have this answer. Maybe one of you can have.
I don't want to knock really these things, but it's really, data centers want 24/7 reliable, basically uninterruptible supply. They can't make an uninterruptible contract with a wind producer. So wind has to be, coupled with other things. And, maybe there is a situation in a certain place. I know, like if you go to Abilene, where one of my relatives lives up in Texas, North Texas. It's huge. Like the wind is right next to the wind potential is incredible. So, there are places where wind is pretty much going all the time. Now, could all that translate into something worthwhile for data centers? I don't know, but you're going to still get situations where the wind goes down to almost nothing. So
absolutely, Cyrus, and it does raise the question: can we build enough batteries to balance that? And right now, the answer is no.
Right.
In the future, possibly, but if you want to depend on a certain source for energy right now, and you had to bet your bottom dollar on it, it's going to be natural gas.
Perfect.
Yeah, and that's I tell you, Armando, that goes back to the initial thing we're talking about. Like, why is everyone getting in on AI? Getting in on the data centers. Like, you see, it's like a wave, right? And you want to be ahead of this wave, not behind it, right? Yeah. You don't want to miss it. Like a surfer, you just missed it, right? Well, I think that the companies are looking at it like almost like an industrial revolution. You look at look at 1990s, the internet, 2007, 2010, smartphones. Now 2022, we're looking at AI and data centers. So if you're a company, and you're thinking, I gotta be ahead of this, because if I'm not, then I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna get antiquated pretty fast, right? And so you can see. There is, of course, a danger. There's a funny thing a guy told me, is a very successful businessman. He said, it's like a gold rush, right? He said a gold rush, and of course you want to be. He said, who makes money in the gold rush? Now this is just a joke, but it's pretty funny. He said, the guys who sell the equipment.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, if you think about it, because not everybody's going to make gold on this.
That's right.
The guys
China is in this pipeline, of course.
That's right. It's true. Yeah.
Let's see a question from Gary. Do you see data centers want a captive source of natural gas to prevent power disruption during curtailment due to the load? Oh my God.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. We could definitely see, contracts or even on-site storage of natural gas, to maintain power during such a curtailment, or even a freeze off in the event of cold weather. It would definitely be best practice.
Where do you store natural gas, or do you prefer to transform in electricity and put in batteries? What's the best choice?
So if there are significant losses in the transmission of power, and when you compare it to natural gas is much better of a medium for storing energy. Right, so you can store natural gas in depleted natural gas storage wells. You can pump it back into the ground. You could store it in aquifers, or you can store it in salt domes. And salt domes, which are primarily located down in Texas and Louisiana, are very flexible, and they can be withdrawn and injected into multiple times during a season. And that's part of the reason why there's so much interest in developing data centers in Texas and Louisiana, as well as its proximity to natural gas resources like the Permian, like the Haynesville, like the Eagle Ford shales.
And what are the relative volumes that you can store in these places? Is a big amount compared to battery storage?
Oh yeah, the scale is astronomical, Armando. When you compare it to batteries, it's entire days of energy versus hours of energy.
Yeah.
Right.
And the leakage problems, is there this problem, leakage?
There is small leakage, Armando. It's definitely much smaller than electricity.
Yeah, and there's also, as of note, we were talking about Virginia, and the United States actually has a lot of natural gas storage in these different places that different types, whether it's salt caverns or depleted wells or all these things, including in Virginia, a little bit that I've seen. But right, even if it's not in Virginia, right near Virginia, like West Virginia has a ton, and Pennsylvania, and I mean you're right there. I think Rob might have some in his house, but it's like there's a lot of natural gas storage in Pennsylvania, with the Marcellus Shale around the corner, and so there is this kind of capability. It also is good when you're putting a data center there and you're saying, well, we not only have pipelines, but we also have storage not far away. I mean, this is a very it's a good selling point.
That's a very good point, because LNG is used only offshore. It's impossible to use onshore, or is I'm wrong?
Well, you need an import facility, Armando. So, but or a facility to regasify the LNG. So you can get truckloads of liquefied natural gas and have it delivered, but you need to regasify that fuel.
The investments are higher.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's those LNG trucks right in the Northeast, right? They have the LNG trucks, so it's the weirdest thing, but they do.
A lot of utilities use them as pressure support during cold weather.
But with the increasing of data centers, electric cars coming strongly, I'm not sure about that. Renewables, intermittence covering, the production of natural gas must increase a lot. Is it correct, or no? Isn't necessary to increase too much?
Yeah, the production of natural gas does need to increase, but like we mentioned earlier, Armando, we have a robust resource base here. We can do that. I think if it's kind of like the field of dreams. If you build it, it will come.
Yeah, but my point is, who will invest on these solutions? Because needs a lot of money.
So we listen. Here at RBAC, we listen to a lot of earnings calls. We did this analysis at Virginia, and we found that given its proximity to the Marcellus, it'll likely be Marcellus shale flowing into Virginia. And really, there's some big guys up here, some big producers. We have EQT, we have Range Resources, and both of those companies called out data centers in their earnings calls and said, "Hey, we are lining up supply agreements, we are lining up contracts to provide natural gas to these consumers."
You mean that the risks to invest in this sector are lower than other energies? You see, stable.
It is stable, and honestly, if you are signing contracts, that's
long-term contracts.
Yes,
okay.
Yes,
yeah,
and that's one of the metrics we use to look at our demand assumptions. Right, if there's a long-term contract in place to supply it, that's probably going to get built.
Yeah.
That means those guys are serious.
Yeah, interesting. And tell us a little bit about Henry Hub prices and flows. How does it work? And do you have a federal Henry Hub? What does it mean? And we have regional ones, and they are connected.
It might go right into the article and the graphs, the next graphs that we have. Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, but anyway, I'll leave it with you.
This one?
You can probably go forward, go to the next one.
Yeah, sure.
So this is talking a little bit about where the incremental supply is coming from, and it's primarily from the Appalachia region. But, Armando, the Henry Hub is a pricing hub in Louisiana. And, there is a lot of production right near there. And, it's historically been the main pricing hub for the United States. And that's changed a little bit, with, the Marcellus Shale, really being developed. Uh-huh. And, yes, Henry Hub will be impacted by this incremental demand, but not as much as prices in Virginia and prices in the Marcellus Shale will be impacted, right? Those areas that are directly impacted by this incremental supply will be impacted more than Henry Hub.
What's the price of gas in Henry Hub today? Two point something dollars per million BTU?
Yes,
Yes.
it's around that, Armando.
Yeah.
And in Brazil, well, I know that's around 11 or more, sometimes more. Is that
Right.
US dollars? 11 US dollars?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
Yeah, because the infrastructure that we have is not sufficient, and so we have.
That's why we have LNG.
Yep. That's perfect. There's a question from Paulo Quebra. I will leave this for the next step, but this point is interesting. Data centers are securing nuclear energy via PPAs, also renewables. Wow.
Yeah.
At what scale, Diana? That's the other question. Is and do you trust those nuclear energy facilities to get built? I mean, how long did that facility in Georgia take to get built? How much longer did it take? Beyond its scale. It was,
How long is to construct one energy plant? 10 years, 8 years? I'm not sure.
I think what is it? How long is the gas power plant? It's only a few years, right? It's Rob, do you know about the new gas?
How long it takes to build a natural gas power plant?
Yeah, like a combined cycle, something like that.
Yeah.
If you have everything lined up, it can go pretty quick.
Yeah, because I thought that I heard about just a couple of years, and but I know it was something like, what is it, more than 15 years for Vogtle over in Atlanta, and so I think the problem nuclear. So if we think about it, if you have nuclear, and they're talking about they might extend current nuclear that's going to be retired, or they might be kind of making buying the nuclear power plant and then taking it away from other sources. But the demand is already there from residential, commercial, industrial. There's other demand that's already there. So that's going to have to be replaced with something else. So even if they buy.
Yes, I was calling out the Vogtle plant in Virginia. That was $17 billion over budget.
Yeah.
Interesting. We have two very interesting comments. Diana Martinez, Brazil does not have gas storage. So market fundamentals are driven by other dynamics to secure firm energy for data centers. Yep, very important comment. And Gary, the constraints on a new energy power plant are permitting and turbine.
Yes.
Oh,
Gary, we've been talking to some people, and it seems like a lot of these people building data centers are going out and securing their own turbines.
Yeah, which is amazing. It's amazing. That was one thing that people didn't see coming, I guess, because it's a constraint, right? So yes, it was the turbines. Okay.
GE Vernova is licking their chops.
Yes.
And how the U.S. Federal government and of course states governments are treating licensing, regulation, infrastructure, investments? How do they are planning these things, or are controversies among them?
Sure. There in recent years, there's definitely been an emphasis to speed up timelines on permitting and being friendlier to the permitting process for these people building, power plants and gas pipelines, and hopefully we can eliminate some permitting redundancies and.
Yeah, there's even the new FERC chairman, right? He is named David Rosner, and who worked under. West Virginia. Suddenly escapes me. Senator West Virginia, Robert
Manchin.
Yeah, Manchin. He worked under Manchin, and so he's a moderate Democrat. And so I was kind of shocked that Trump, a Republican, would appoint a Democrat for FERC. But when I found he worked under Manchin, and so that he's more moderate, then I could say, okay, well, that could make it interesting. So I think we've been trying to reduce the years of literally years of permitting processes. Like it was something like I went to a conference a couple of years ago, and even then they were comparing, like, some years before it used to be like 300 days or something, and then it became like 700 days to get these FERC approvals. So some crazy stuff like that. And that's why you'll find that states will do as much as they can intrastate, in the state, within the state. Like if they can keep everything within the state, then that's why you have such a huge build out in places like Texas and Louisiana.
Armando, for reference, if you cross state lines in the United States, you have additional permitting requirements. You're subject to FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. But if you do not cross state lines, then you are not.
Yeah, but who has the final decision? The government, the federal government, or the states?
I suppose it depends on the project.
Okay.
And that's one of those permitting things that they really need to streamline.
Let's go to a kind of prediction. Of course, it's very difficult to predict price, something crazy. But if you could say, how do you use your company, I suppose, to do simulations? How do you see the price of natural gas for the future? Increasing, decreasing?
Armando, can I ask one thing? In one thing I'd like us to cover, which actually relates to that, is in the article, they actually have some interesting scenarios. And Rob did this article, and I thought maybe maybe Rob, could you tell them a little bit about what the article basically was about, and then this high, medium, low scenario? I mean, that's, to me, was very interesting, because that also talks about demand and price.
Sure. So, Armando, we ran this scenario based off of Virginia data center load, right? And I think I have a graph on it if you can pull it up.
Sure.
Before this. Yep.
Yeah.
So we kind of have a current outlook on Virginia data center. We have a high case, a half demand case, and a static case, right? And what this means is that, if best case scenario, we added 1.5 BCF a day of incremental data center demand to Virginia, how would that affect pricing, and how would that impact flows into Virginia? And really what we found is that, we used our GPCM pipeline model, which is gas pipeline competition, and it has all North American natural gas infrastructure modeled with assumptions for supply and demand. And it's a partial market equilibrium model, meaning that supply must always equal demand as constrained by pipes. And, in this study, we chose to change one assumption, which was data center demand, and see what the ramifications were. So within Virginia, with another 1.5 BCF of demand or another 0.5 BCF of demand, we saw a marketed increase in price. And then we also saw a need for more pipelines in the region, right? So there are pipelines transporting natural gas to Virginia right now. Pipelines like the Transco or Mountain Valley Pipeline, but we need more, and whether or not they increase that capacity with new pipelines or whether they increase the compression on existing pipelines is yet to be seen. But, given these possible scenarios, we could need more pipeline capacity.
Interesting. Very good point. Diana Martins, how do you see speculative data center investments evolving versus strategic safe investments in the U.S.? And there are particular regions where activity is more speculative driven rather than strategic.
That's kind of a tough question. We've been talking to a lot of local utilities, and we found that, there is a concern that some people or some companies are kind of shopping around, meaning that, a Google might have the intent to build 3 data centers, but might be going around to 10 utilities and just trying to figure out where the best place to go would be. So, if each of those utilities builds up the infrastructure, but only 3 of the 10 get that load, there's a risk there. I think that, from a safety perspective, I would think that, the closer you are to the resource base, the closer you are to demand for your data center, for your electricity, the safer it would be.
Yeah, and there are some interesting AI developments as well, which is we did hear about. I mean, one of the things that shocked us, if you remember, a few months ago, was DeepSeek over in China, and using far less power for the same results. And so this was a real shock. But at the same time, it was a market dip for NVIDIA, but they actually recovered very quickly. So I think it's still a little bit up in the air. I think they're still kind of investing in the brute force. Like, we get the most, and we get the most power, the fastest chips, the smartest systems. And I think what they're thinking is that we need, at whatever expense, we need this right now. But long term is, I guess, it's going to be a little bit open to question, which is actually, now it's just my opinion here, but I think if you start looking long term, you really don't know how it's going to go. If in the past, energy, even though we did have energy refinements, look at the US per person, we have less energy usage. However, our total energy is more. So what ends up happening is we instead of just becoming more economical with energy, the AI and data centers might just find more usage and more new usage. So then overall, they might get more efficient, but they also might be doing more. So you might still have more usage overall, rather than a DeepSeek, like, we overestimated by 10 times, and we're only using 10% of what we thought.
10% of the energy. Yeah.
So
this increase of energy demand for data centers will affect the LNG exports, specifically for Europe.
Honestly, Armando, I don't think so. I mean, we talked about it earlier with the pricing differentials between the Henry Hub and with you in Brazil. There's such a wide, basis between, the U.S. and international markets that I don't think LNG exports will be impacted at all.
Yeah.
And now is the friendship of Trump and Putin. They can recover Nord Stream 2 and make 400,000 million cubic meters per day flowing from Russia to Europe. I'm not sure about that. It's only a figure. Let me go to the last point, a tricky point that Cyrus loves. I know that. Cyrus, and Robert, I give you $100. And you need to put money investing in energy development. How much of this $100 you put in renewables, nuclear, natural gas, and other you want?
I'd put in natural gas. I mean, what did Cyrus say before? People in the gold rush. People that make money are the providers, right? People
put all money on energy only. Is not a kind of contingency avoidance?
I think probably from what he said earlier, maybe I would put all my money on the turbine companies. Turbine companies.
Very good point. And the equipment that serve this purpose,
the equipment to get the gold.
That's right. And can sell for everywhere, not only for
That's right.
Was a great pleasure having Cyrus Brooks and Robert Kashmar on this day talking about natural gas for data centers. It's a topic that we can be talking for several weeks because of something.
Exactly, and this is the beauty of running a scenario. I think Rob probably says it better, but yeah, it's the beauty of being able to run these scenarios and under so many different circumstances that you could decide. Whether it's like you said, well, what happens if suddenly Brazil needs LNG, and or what happens if they get there, together and they start exporting all sorts of stuff,
or they don't get a lot of rain because Brazil depends on hydro a lot, right? If it doesn't rain a lot,
but it's not stable for the future. It's not stable. Yeah. We need to open fracking in Brazil. That's forbidden at this time. We cancel this permit.
Cyrus, where's the Vaca Muerta?
Vaca Muerta is Argentina, in south. Yeah, it's not in Brazil.
Middle of Argentina.
It's producing a lot. Yeah.
Pipelines. I mean, there's pipelines going that direction. That's not too far from Brazil. I believe it's all the way to Brazil. But
it's going to Brazil. These pipelines.
Yeah. So there you go. So
but it's not too much because they need energy and the investments are not so huge like in Virginia and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, South America, some of these countries, they get their things together a little bit better. I mean, there's a lot of potential.
But takes time.
Plenty of resources.
Latin America. Let's see what can happen here. Thank you so much, Robert and Cyrus. Was a good. Please keep in the send. I will close the. Thank you, the audience, by the questions and the comments. Very welcome.
And we'll put the link to the article below the.
Sure. So
below the video.
Point to see the points that Robert put in the article.
Great.
Fantastic. Thank you.